Dream SMP lore and Wilbur Soot go together like anchovies and nothing. Today, we get the conclusion to the Wilbur Van arc on the Dream SMP, but it's in a little bit different format than I think we expected. Welcome back, friends, and a special welcome to all the new friends out there. I'm YoBGS, and yeah, I've been following the Dream SMP for quite some time now, and at this point, it's almost like I just want to know how this thing is gonna end someday. Like, I'm that invested in this cinematic universe, and Wilbur actually started a burger van with Ranboo, and the lore kind of fell apart from there. But Wilbur let us know that he wrote the rest of that arc. Well, today, my friends, on his stream, he read his, I guess, can you write fan fiction about yourself? Either way, that's what he read today, and it sounds like it was pretty incredible. That is what we're gonna check out. If you're new, make sure to subscribe, join the butterflies, earn your wings. I cannot believe we're over 60,000 subs. Now, actually, I'm working on some OC, this video that's taken over 50 hours to make right now. I'm really hoping you guys like that. Now, we're gonna start like this. The stream got copyrighted, so for about a minute here, there's nothing, and then Wilbur does come in. I did check that ahead of time. By the way, if you see yourself in Wilbur's chat, make sure to tag yourself. Leave a comment down below. Okay, all right, I'm gonna have to try and get a Wilbur voice here, or at least something good for this. The Wilbur Van, Act 2, Stream 1, The View from the Bottom of the Ladder. No, it's a good plan, Wilbur, Tommy said, idly kicking at the sandy dirt around the burger van. With that, I've just tanked my entire career for reading these. You just look like a dumbass building a road no one will use. He looked up and waited for a reaction. Again, we're like 45 seconds away from Wilbur picking this up. Oh, right, because Wilbur's reading this on his actual stream, apart from the parts that got copyright claimed. Okay, here we go. The afternoon was hot and the sun was high in the sky. Wilbur sweltered as he placed meter upon meter of black bubbling concrete powder into the desert sands.
Wait, the distance shimmered like a mirage.
Okay, there we go. We've got Wilbur, ladies and gentlemen.
The thermostat was his enemy, and the city in the distance shimmered like a mirage. It was a simple plan, in his mind, to build a diversion away from Quackity to his burger van, a more appetizing meal for the tired wanderer in the deserts of Las Nevadas, served hot, medium rare, and non-fungible. The people would simply read—
Everybody wants to funge their burgers, though. That's the first thing I do when I get a burger, is I thoroughly funge it.
Flocking from far and wide to get a taste of the succulent steak grilled with American cheese, crispy red onions, lettuce, and a single tomato. At least, he hoped it was. Wilbur had tried Las Nevadas burgers before, and they were good, very good in fact. Ranboo would surely be able to compete, but he needed the correct marketing and to devote his energy to the right places. He would show Quackity who was really the mastermind figurehead. The only problem he faced was inaccessibility and infrastructure.
Well, it is the problem, because Las Nevadas has basically built all around the burger van, and getting customers there when they could, on the other hand, go to Las Nevadas is a bit of a problem. By the way, Wilbur did say, let's see, I'm at 643. Wilbur said at the beginning of this, they were all written before Ranboo's death. It's written in its own timeline, respective of the character of Wilbur Soot. Actors have signed off on the actions. They're genuine and representative. It's up to audience interpretation which timeline is canon. All future lore based around Wilbur. This is canon. Okay, so this is kind of wild to me, the way that all of this played out. I don't know about you, and that's why I kind of jumped on this. I'm like, we need to check this out today, because it's why could this not have been filmed? It just seems so weird to me that the server went a different way than the guy who was kind of writing it. I don't know.
The problem he faced was inaccessibility and infrastructure. Shut up, Tommy, he spat, kneeling as he smoothed out another air bubble from his road. People will use it. I asked around. Everyone said they'll come by from Wilburger. They just didn't know where it was. It's because they don't want you to fucking blow them up again, Tommy muttered. Wilbur
I like the Tommy impression.
It's because they don't want Quackity to have a monopoly, actually, Tommy. Wilbur was visibly exhausted despite little work progress. They understand the dangers of an uncompetitive economy. You're an uncompetitive economy, prick. Tommy retorted proudly, his smile wiping quickly off his face as Wilbur turned and looked up at him, his eyes casting daggers. What? Tommy whined. Jesus Christ, I'm so bored. You haven't even served a single burger in the entire time you've been doing this van thing. Wilbur paused his progress and dropped his weight onto both his palms pressed into the sand. Just get me more concrete, Tommy, he said quietly. Tommy did not respond. Wilbur turned his head sharply, squinted up into the sun behind Tommy's silhouette. It's interesting to me,
and okay, so I may talk over some of the flavor text here, like Wilbur turning his head and looking at the sun, just so I don't pause every 2 seconds for the entire video. But like, again, it's very interesting to me the way that Wilbur, even in this, well, the written lore is lore, but the way that Wilbur's treating Tommy in this, it's not the brotherly relationship it used to be.
It had been 4 hours, but felt like 10. At least a dozen scorpions had been disturbed in Wilbur's construction, and a king cobra almost brought a sour end to the efforts. But still, Wilbur persisted.
Those are not in Minecraft.
Wilbur's jacket and socks sat in a damp, sweaty pile on the junction as he worked smoothing out a stubborn bulge on the edge of the road. Tommy brought him his concrete. Tommy also brought Wilbur a glass of water. Wilbur took both and said nothing. Tommy paused and walked quietly back to the van.
All Tommy wants is approval.
Across the sands in the city, Quackity would watch Wilbur from atop the Needle restaurant. He wore a suit, no tie, and idly fiddled with a poker chip he took for his own during the casino's construction. He saw no threat in Wilbur's activities, so why did he still feel a twinge of stress in his temples whenever he would set up his next competitive venture? Quackity could not determine whether it was guilt, jealousy, or simply annoyance at this proverbial fly buzzing round his soup. He chose to hatch a plan. You see, the mind has a strange way of making one want to react even in situations where to remain idle would benefit it. The mind always wants to throw water on the grease fire, pull up into an aerodynamic stool, and pick at the scab.
God, that is my life at this moment, is just overthinking like a million things that have been going on. So that rang so true.
Quackity always felt a desire to react to his nemesis. Wilbur would...
Easy for you to say.
Quackity's summons not long after.
It's so weird reacting to just essentially a PowerPoint presentation, but like the reading of all of this, I don't know. I guess maybe I could have listened to it and then made like a short video afterwards explaining what I thought. But to me, it's more interesting to have this captured, you know, in real time as to what's going on, because I know something's gonna raise the boom here, and I'm very worried.
Laying the halfway point of his road in the early evening. The irony that Wilbur would be invited inside into a cold Las Nevadas restaurant just as the sweltering sun crested over the hill and began disappearing into the horizon was not lost on him. He smiled and chuckled into a cough before hoisting to his feet and strolling up towards the city lights. Wilbur thought the Las Nevadas skyline was bare, propped up haphazardly in the middle of a desert and held together with concrete and tape. There's not much that could be lost if a tornado swept through the entire place.
But it's Minecraft, right? So, like, that's fair. You know, there's not... most people are not building foundations in Minecraft.
Written a poem about it before, while ignoring Rambu, who was talking about something he was far too interested in. I am the gilding of the gold. I am the painting of the lily. I am the crushing of the sand, I am the torrading tide of bland. I am the taunting silver light which penetrates and scars the sky. I am the remnant hopes and dreams of all good men that come to die. I am the surgeon's chromium dagger. I am turgid Las Nevadas.
Interesting.
Upon his arrival, it didn't take long for Wilbur and Quackity's discussion, however, to deteriorate into arguments. And for what? Wilbur shouted, on his feet, arms wide. You to overthrow me again? What, you want my van now? Here! He slammed a key on the table in the empty restaurant. Wilbur, I don't want your van, Quackity said calmly. Take my van! Wilbur, I don't want your van. A silence fell over the two.
I don't know why, but like being able to picture this in your head is just such a bonkers thing, because you can see them. Like, Wilbur did such a good job writing the exact actions of these characters. It's clear that he knows, you know, the people that he streams, works with, and is friends with, that like you can see them exactly doing the things that he's talking about.
Through gritted teeth. Neither of them knew it, but the Needle restaurant had just rotated its 5,000th time.
Free drinks for everyone.
Quackity had simply asked Wilbur what he thought of the meal. This had progressed into arguments over the chef's competence, then Quackity's competence, then Wilbur's demeanour. All Quackity needed to ask is if he could take his coat from him. Well, what do you want? Wilbur queried, vaguely gesturing outwards towards other non-existent restaurant patrons. Huh? You have my money, you have my time, hell, I'd even say you have my attention. Quackity raised an eyebrow at Wilbur, and he paused. Which is a lot for me.
Quackity raised his only eyebrow.
An innocent onlooker would think Quackity was treating a homeless man to a nice meal. The plates were empty, but only Wilbur showed signs of having eaten. The puree stains sat stubbornly on the corners of his mouth and his shirt. Quackity had worn a serviette bib. "You want my dignity?" Wilbur opined. "I don't want your dignity, Wilbur," Quackity responded, tersely now. Growing tired of Wilbur's insolence, he forcefully cracked a smile. "Aside from your jacket for the cloakroom, I want your wisdom." "Oh, my wisdom." Wilbur was standing again. "My wisdom? Well, how about you crack open my head with a meat tenderizer and scoop it all out?"
Not too far away from what Quackity essentially had done to him.
To where I smile. "Or a pickaxe?"
Exactly.
"Sit down, Wilbur," Quackity snapped, and Wilbur sat. "The thing is, running a nation is hard," began Quackity, Wilbur's eyes attempting a roll. "You have a lot of people depending on you. They invest their lives, their time, and their future into your hands. It's a cliche, but they pay through blood, sweat, and tears."
And by the way, if something happened at the beginning, because I know Wilbur was talking at the beginning, but again, Twitch muted all of that. So if something happened at the beginning that is relevant to all of this, please make sure to let me know in the comments. I'm sorry if I don't know about it. It's just a function of, again, the fact that all of this, the first like 6 minutes until where we picked it up, were all muted, even him talking. So it's been a little bit tough.
"And I just don't think I can offer my people the best life on my own," he continued. "Wilbur, I want to offer you a position." This sentence stirred Wilbur, and he finally seemed to have time to listen. "You've proven you're not as volatile anymore. You're not a threat to me, and I think you're ready to re-enter government." "Re-enter government?"
But what about Tommy?
What's the catch? If I... "No catch," Quackity interrupted, placing a contract on the table. A handwritten parchment, checked, authorized, and checked again, in such a thorough way only Quackity could accomplish. Wilbur paused, and for the first time in a long time, began to feel humbled.
Don't.
I don't think I can...
Quackity's so good at finding those little, like, needles, those little pain points to get people to do what he wants. He's like Dream, but like a less forceful Dream, you know?
"Nation, Quackity," he said softly. I appreciate the respect you must have for me to put me in a position of power, but I just don't think my reputation would grant anyone the peace of mind you're looking for." "I'd still be president," Quackity replied.
CEO?
"But then I'd have to be behind the scenes. What trust could people put in the government if that comes out?" You wouldn't be behind the scenes." "What do you mean?" Wilbur breathed, the words falling off his tongue and landing into a short silence. "You'd be a figurehead as much as I," Quackity spoke slowly. "We'd work together."
But wasn't this something that had the opportunity to happen all the way back in Las Nevadas? Didn't Quackity have the opportunity to, like, throw his support behind Wilbur?
"You'd want another
Now
coalition?"
they just have bigger
Wilbur
buildings.
asked. Big Q, I think if I were to be in power, I'd want to rule alone." "Rule?" There was a further pause. Quackity seemed just as confused as Wilbur for a moment before his eyes lit up and he chuckled. "Oh, oh God, no, Wilbur! You wouldn't rule Las Nevadas." Wilbur's humble
Then what's he
expression
gonna
began
do?
to fade. "You'd be my vice president." Suddenly, the world came to an end, right in front of them.
I feel like being Quackity's vice president is kind of like being the nicest guy in prison. You know what I mean? Like, there's still just a little bit of like, he's a vice president, but, you know.
The words dropped like a guillotine, which sliced the entire SMP into two perfect halves. What a coincidence that the apocalyptic guillotine seemed to strike perfectly in the center of Wilbur's skull. And what a coincidence that only Wilbur seemed to see or feel it happen. "That's what you brought me here for," Wilbur replied shakily, trying to contain his rage. You deem me a vice president?" "I deem you a qualified leader, yes," Quackity replied calmly. "Do you understand how insulting your charity attempt is?" "I don't think it's insulting. Don't forget, I was once a vice president," Quackity chuckled. "Yeah, well, I couldn't stoop that low." Wilbur slammed his fist
Wilbur, you've been
on
a
the table and
ghost
stood up.
before.
"Wilbur, you forget yourself," Quackity spat. "Ha!" Wilbur replied, mocking Quackity's intonation. "Wilbur, you forget yourself. Quackity, you forget where you stand next to me. You are in my shadow. Act like it." Quackity's eyes furrowed. Wilbur continued. "Maybe it's not a coincidence that every single idea you've ever had has failed under your guidance." He spoke his next sentence slowly, one word at a time. "You are a walking second-place medal."
It's so hard to not read ahead, and like I'm reacting to stuff that's like 2 lines below what Wilbur is reading, and meanwhile I'm sitting here and I want to be like skip ahead, gotta get to the end.
"And yet you are the one who lost an election even when you tried to rig it," Quackity snapped back, like a whip. Almost as soon as he'd finished his last word, Wilbur was struck out of his rage. "Get out of my nation." "You're kicking me out?" Yes, leave.
I want you in. I don't want
There
you
was a
in.
pause.
Make up your
Wilbur
mind.
glanced around the restaurant, taking in everything he could before
I would have loved, by the way, because they mentioned that to onlookers, it looked like Quackity was giving a homeless guy a meal. It would be amazing if, like, Boomer N.A., if, like, Michael McChill, if, like, a lot of the newer members of the SMP just happened to be in the restaurant at that time. I just think that would be cool to have them, like, I almost wish the Dream SMP had extras. You know what I mean? Like, people who, yes, they're on the SMP, but, like, if you don't have a speaking role in a movie, right? You just pilot the skin that's, like, running around in the background. Because I feel like all of those extra bodies would give even more context to everything that's going on, rather than just everything being two people sitting alone.
his ejection. How about we organize a way for me to lead a branch of your government? Wilbur seemed to be begging. Quackity was unmoved. Any more words used on you would be a waste of both our time. Look, Quackity, you're a smart man, Quackity snapped. If you really valued my intelligence, you wouldn't need to remind me. I'll be out of your hair. You won't ever have to think about me again.
No, Wilbur.
I don't think about you at all.
Wilbur blew it.
Quackity replied. And
it's like on Shark Tank when people ask for too much money.
Silence fell across the room, only to be broken by a gentle squeak of the rotating cogs. Quackity shattered the silence like ice. Oh, Wilbur, how relaxing it must be to have a mind unburdened by embarrassment.
Solid
The
line.
elevator pinged and opened in front of him. Through Wilbur's apparent numbing red mist, he somehow managed to navigate his index finger to the ground floor button, and after holding it for what an onlooker would deem a questionably long time, released it to a satisfying elevator ping. Tommy was waiting for him at the bottom of the restaurant, idly pouring sand between his two hands. Wilbur, how was it? He asked, standing up and walking towards him. Did you steal his eyes? I would have stolen his eyes, but I'm built different. Wilbur didn't
Again, the way Wilbur thinks of Tommy, even in writing these, is tremendous. You gotta... Tommy, so far, is the comic relief, which scares me, because we all know what Tommy's capable
the answer, staring past Tommy and towards a knocked-over outdoor patio chair covered in sand. He smiled, shook his head and replied, "There's nowhere left to go but up."
All right. Stream
The
2
Wilbur Van Act
horseplay.
2. This will be the second stream horseplay.
This almost doesn't sound much
Rambo
like
missed a lot from back
actual
home.
lore.
Being on the outskirts wasn't all it was cracked up to be from Wilbur's persuasion. He missed his home, he missed Tubbo, and he missed Michael. Still, Rambo saw something in Wilbur. He saw a man trying his best to carve out a legacy. A man at his lowest trying to gain redemption. But unfortunately, he also saw a man with an insatiable pride. A man who was a living bomb about to explode. And scariest of all, he saw a bit of himself. Tubbo walked out the back of the Las Nevadas Burger Bar and bumped into Rambo, who was sitting on the hill. "Oh, hi, Rambo!" Tubbo chirped as he dumped a garbage bag full of old food into the dumpster. "Hey, Tubbo," Rambo chimed back at him with a wave. "Just hang..."
Not quite. Rambo's the first one where I'm like, maybe not.
"Hanging out by the bins, huh?" "You know me." Rambo scratched his cheek and an awkward silence fell over the two.
He's making Rambo seem so, like, deep
Surely
voiced.
Wilbur wouldn't mind if they just went for a walk between shifts. "Hey, I wanted to They both said in unison and laughed. You first, Rambo insisted. "Okay, I wanted to know if you wanted to come into the restaurant for something to eat. Big Q said I can have anyone round after my shift is done, as long as they purchase something for at least $20. Tubbo smiled, and Rambo felt a wave of relief over him. "I was going to ask you pretty much the same thing," he said. "Really?" Tubbo shouted incredulously. "Yeah, I need to ask Wilbur, though. I don't think he's keen on me hanging out in the city." "I can bring the food to you. We can eat across the borders," Tubbo suggested.
There's something very cute about that. I love that idea of... I love the fact that they are not enemies. Or at least, I don't know. Because, again, we have to put ourselves back into, like, what the characters were thinking about at that time. And it always seems like Tubbo is trying to keep Rambo close physically, but, like, at a distance. And that's what's interesting to me, because Rambo genuinely enjoys Tubbo, but I don't think the feeling is mutual.
"Look, I can even bring out a table and chairs, and we can push them down the hill at the end of our meal and see which one rolls the farthest. I have this theory that the chairs will go further simply because they have a tall, rounded back, and the tables will only go so far before they land on their top side. Well, it's like a 50-50 chance, really." Tubbo unfastened his cooking apron and scrunched it into a ball in his hands. "Let's do it," Rambo said, all of his worries washing away in an instant. The meal ended up being...
And see, this is something I missed at the beginning when I'm sure he was describing it. But what does the white... I'm guessing the white and black is like a scenery change, I guess. Because now it seems like there's a passage of time at this point.
Superb. Ranboo, who seemed unable to turn down Tubbo's plentiful offerings of a meal he called far too much food, slowly, pissedly staggered down the hill back towards the burger van, where he could only make out the faint shape of Wilbur smoking a cigarette. Ranboo approached him timidly. Wilbur stood in front of the van door. He only did this when he was about to ask Ranboo something intimidating. Ranboo was right. Wilbur had plans for a heist this evening.
A heist?
The plan was, under the cover of darkness...
somebody cue the GTA music! We've got a heist!
Steal Quackity's prize horse, Boner. Boner had been named during a more whimsical time in Quackity's life when he was less weathered by the winds of responsibility. Wilbur knew it well as one of the only things Quackity brought with him from old L'Manberg to Las Nevadas. It obviously meant the world to him.
The more things change, the more they stay the same. How do you exact revenge on an individual of the Dream SMP? You bother their pet. No matter... This server could blow up to 800 people, everyone doing lore every hour of the day. Pets will still be the way to just grind at somebody.
Ranboo had his reservations and debated declining Wilbur's offer, but Wilbur persisted by playing onto the concept of the greater good. For how else would they topple the obelisk of tyranny if they didn't start the foundations?
Wilbur knows who he is.
After all, it was a tame heist, all things considered, and Ranboo would do well for his job prospects to accept. In this hollow fact, Ranboo found himself an accomplice once more.
Always a bridesmaid.
You would expect a criminal to wrap themselves in jet black silks or a camouflage jumpsuit, but Wilbur simply wore burgundy. Ranboo tried to at least primarily drape himself in the blacks from his wardrobe, but Wilbur almost teased the idea of being caught. Not even a black coat? Ranboo asked. Gotta make the heart beat somehow, Rambus, Wilbur responded, stuffing a handful of fries into his mouth.
No, don't carbo load before a heist. Poor Wilbur is gonna be... They'll find him because they'll follow the gas trail out of the... But he reminds me of, like, George Clooney's character in the Oceans movies. You know, everyone's doing their secret heisty stuff, and then the George Clooney character's just, like, in a nice suit, like, actually gambling at the casino, not really taking any of the risks behind the scenes.
The clock struck midnight. The pair began ascending the hill towards the city.
Burgundy suits
The only
Wilbur,
lights
though.
guiding their path were those reflected from the glowstone in the fountain, scattering a bouncing effervescent pattern across the walls of the city buildings. The streetlights were all completely devoid of light. Las Nevadas had no need for streetlights in the early hours of the morning, so switched them off to allow its few citizens a sleep undisrupted by light pollution.
What about guests?
The two snuck quietly to the corner of Tubbo's burger restaurant, and Wilbur raised his fist to signal Ranboo to stop. He checked their surroundings before opening his palm and walking out into the street. Ranboo was scared. Maybe he was excited. Ranboo struggled to tell the difference between the two sometimes.
Quite frankly, he could have been both at the same
Walking
time.
past the restaurant, crawling behind the strip club, and sneaking between two construction sites lay a small paddock, constructed out of a shoulder-height wooden fence left over from the building efforts. There, stood gormlessly in the sand, was Boner.
All right, timeout. Timeout. I'm calling it timeout. 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 I do not believe gormlessly is a word. I think Wilbur's trolling us. Gormlessly. Chiefly British. Never mind. Lacking into... Aw, that's feckful. I love that the more you look at these, the more it's literally just like expressions Wilbur uses. Okay, so gormless, lacking in gorm.
Take this, Wilbur said, passing Ranboo a crude rope fashioned into a leash. Ranboo took the leash, and Wilbur climbed into the field and delicately tied the other end to Boner's neck. Wilbur, I don't think I want to hold the horse, Ranboo protested, limply gripping his end of the leash in his hands. Wilbur snatched it like a ripcord. If you're scared, we do it together, he winked at Ranboo before leading Boner to the edge of the paddock.
The
Ranboo
two of
removed
them
two
don't
wooden
need to be doing anything with a boner together.
panels from the fencing, allowing Wilbur and the horse to walk out the field and into the streets. The three conspicuously began walking back to the van. It wasn't long before they were spotted. What are you doing? Asked Tubbo, quietly, cleaning his windows as they approached the burger restaurant. None of your business, Tubbo, Wilbur responded. Eyes to yourself. That's Quackity's horse, he spoke louder this time. Oh, jeez. Ranboo, I don't have time for this. You deal with him. Wilbur scrambled down the hill, yanking Boner quickly away from the scene.
Oh, come on! You can't say it like that!
Ranboo took a few small steps towards Tubbo. Hey, man, maybe you should go back inside? Big Q told me to take care of that horse, Tubbo replied. I've been feeding him every day. Well, he's in safe hands, Ranboo lied. We're gonna hold him ransom.
Isn't it a,
Wilbur,
isn't it a skeleton horse?
He's too soft. No, he's not, Tubbo blurted, a tremble in his voice. Bring the horse back now. No, Tubbo, Ranboo said, attempting to be firm. Tubbo, unperturbed by Ranboo's stature over him, dropped his cleaning rag. You're going to end up hurting him. Even if you don't intend to, you will. Wilbur always hurts innocent things, and it's not fair. The horse didn't do anything wrong. Ranboo didn't respond. He just stood there, slightly hunched, staring down at the boy. Ranboo, make him bring the horse back, Tubbo begged quietly, his voice sounding trembly, diminished, and tired. No, Tubbo. I'm going to have to tell Big Q. Don't tell Big Q, Tubbo. It's for the greater good. Tubbo felt his rage build up inside him. Nothing Wilbur does is for the greater good. He takes, and everything is his own little mission of revenge. Can't you see? He's made you think you and him are alike, but you're not, Ranboo. You're better than this. Ranboo felt the fuse in him finally reach its payload. Tubbo, he snapped.
Whoa,
for God's sake.
That was quick. Tubbo's eyes began to wet, and he quickly turned around and walked away.
Tubbo, he snapped. For God's sake, just give him a chance. I know I haven't always made the best decisions with who I trust, but this time I swear to you that things may not always be as bad as you think. I mean, people change, people get better, and if you never give them a chance to prove it, you'll be stuck hating everyone that's ever wronged you, and you won't have anyone left. A silence fell over the two. Tubbo's eyes began to wet, and he quickly turned around.
Oh, he accidentally went to that scene.
Down the hill, Wilbur cheered and lit up another cigarette. Attaboy, Rhombus! He gloated. Ranboo felt sick. The next day, back in paradise on the outskirts of Las Nevadas, beneath the oak trees by the lake, Wilbur and Tommy's HQ was buzzing with light. A welding torch was scattering sparks like fireflies in the dark evening light as a very tired Tommy methodically lined redstone on the hard, rocky floor. Quackity would surely have seen it from his window in Las Nevadas. However, he was asleep, ready for his usual early morning rise.
It is one of those things, right? Because Tubbo is now on the opposite side of everyone he's been aligned with on the server, except for Quackity. Because I don't even think Tubbo was really aligned with Charlie or Purpled or Fundy. So when everyone you care about is on one side and you are on the other, but you believe you're in the... Like, how do you marry those two ideas as an individual?
Tommy focused intently on his job, negating his exhaustion as much as possible, only letting his focus slip occasionally to quip something funny to Wilbur. Wilbur enjoyed the company and laughed along, but fretted for the handiwork of Tommy's wiring. For if a single piece of the red powder was not connected properly, the entire circuit would break.
Oh, okay.
Wilbur!
I saw red powder and immediately thought TNT, but he's just talking about redstone.
Tommy asked with a whining inflection. Yes, Tommy, Wilbur responded, muffled by the welding mask strapped to his face. Tommy sniffed and wiped his nose on his forearm. How do you know this plan will work? It doesn't matter what plan I come up with.
Why couldn't he have gotten the characters to record their own lines? I don't get it.
Wilbur replied. All Quackity wants to make sure is that I'm not winning. Wilbur's mind worked like a firework. He would have intense flashes of an idea and a storm-like energy coupled with it, but found it hard to maintain that energy further into his work. It was as if the two minds sat in his skull, one who sat dormant on a lounging recliner, sipping gently on a lemonade and watching the mess through two myopic windows. The other half sat at the helm. Clueless, scared, but confident, occasionally the reclining mind would speak up and present an ingenious idea, then fall back to languor. The working mind would then slog the task. Nonetheless, he felt he had gotten this far in life by following his gut and chasing those storms. He had grown so accustomed to perseverance, the next time the firework bloomed, it would greet him as an old friend. This firework had bloomed in the form of vengeance.
I was paying attention while I'm trying to mimic all of the gestures associated there, but yeah, so Wilbur, unsurprisingly, is giving into flights of destructive fancy again.
Wilbur had set up a marvelous trap. Rigged to an explosive device was a pressure plate, bending the wires in such a way as to only be triggered upon the plate's release, meaning the TNT would only detonate not when someone stands on top of it, but only when they step off of it afterwards. The plate was a stone one, meaning any person or creature could set the trap off. So why did you choose Quackity's horse? Tommy asked. Easy to get a hold of, Wilbur chuckled. Quackity doesn't really care about that horse. I'm just showing him a fraction of what I can do. Quackity's horse Boner obliviously chewed old carpet across the room from them, completely unaware he was about to be detonated because he is a horse that cannot speak English. But how do you know this for sure? Tommy asked. I just do, Wilbur answered, a little more sharply than usual. But you've said stuff like this before and it wasn't true. You've got a bit of a track record of lying, Tommy said. I have never lied to you, Wilbur spoke firmly. The atmosphere of fun and whimsy quickly drained from the room.
But that in and of itself is a lie.
I mean, Tommy began, that's not true. I've had so many people lie to me, including you. Wilbur shook his head. I've never lied to you. What about the pit? What about the stuff you said about Tubbo betraying us in L'Manberg? What about when you said no one would hurt Tubbo? Wilbur lifted his mask. If I truly believed it was the truth, does that make me a liar? Tommy thought for a moment. Well, not exactly, but that's the difference between me and Schlatt. That's the difference between me and Phil.
It's not a lie,
the difference between
if
me
you
and
believe
Quackity.
it.
The sparks had stopped flying, so it was impossible to make out Wilbur's facial expressions as he spoke. I have never lied to you, Tommy. I've been wrong, but I've never lied to you, Tommy. I won't lie to you. Do you trust me, Tommy? Because right now, I feel like you don't trust me. These words Wilbur spoke. These words...
You don't want Wilbur maniacally yelling things at the same time you're standing by TNT.
that had calmed the strongest men and built entire nations had no effect on Tommy anymore. They just made him a little frightened. Tommy had heard Wilbur speak like this many times, but it never got easier. He felt he had done something wrong simply by posing his point of view, and he felt like the antagonist when all he wanted was an answer. I trust you, Wilbur, he said quietly. Wilbur brought his visor back down and carried on his work. After a long night, the trap was set. The two went to bed. Wilbur slept soundly and deeply whilst Tommy stayed awake. Tubbo was wrong. The table rolled the farthest.
At least now we know. I like that as a cut at the end of that stream, by the way. The idea of them going back to Tubbo and Ranboo, doing the Tubbo and Ranboo stuff, although I don't think Ranboo knew the plans with the horse necessarily. All he knew is that he was distracting E. All he knew is that he distracted Tubbo, and that's not going to end well.
The Wilbur Van, Act 2, Stream 3, hitting on 16.
Risky maneuver.
Tommy
It's
left
one of
to
those
go
things
home
in
early
blackjack. You don't want to do it, but when you have to, you have to.
in the morning of the day of Wilbur's plan. It was a cold morning, but the summer sun had just started to evaporate the dew, leaving a humid mist in Tommy's wake as he walked up the half-finished highway and towards the forest leading into the Dream SMP. Tubbo also stirred early. Having had trouble sleeping the night prior, he decided to make use of his time and tried to get work done. He donned his apron, cleaned the fryers, and started his shift.
When did Tubbo become
patrons even strolled
SpongeBob?
past, but Tubbo forgot to flip the close sign to open. Surely there was more to his job than this. Tubbo was Big Q's prize co-worker, and almost out of spite, Tubbo felt he had something to prove. If not to Quackity, then to Ranboo. But Ranboo hadn't slept. He went for a walk, towing the outskirts of the city and visiting the Las Nevadas rendition of the Eiffel Tower.
It's a beautiful build.
No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't seem to switch his brain on. It was as if the morning humidity had permeated his skull, and every one of his thoughts simply disappeared into the fog as soon as they were made. Wilbur awoke with a spring in his step. Under the lake
How
by
is
the
he
Burger
so
Van, just below
consistently the
sandstone holding
opposite
up
of
the
what
topsoil, sat Wilbur's
everybody
contraption. Currently
dealing with?
unprimed, the wires were redirected from the TNT to a simple redstone lamp. Wilbur lay, belly down on the stone floor, gently pressing onto the trigger and releasing it. Satisfied that the lamp illuminated upon doing so, a smile grew wider across his face as he repeated this quietly to himself again and again. Boner the horse had been moved, now tied up in this cavern, dehydrated and hungry. Wilbur had more important things on his mind. Constructed on one side of this cavern was a glass viewing bay, just out of range of the TNT blast, and accessible
What?
from Wilbur and Tommy's HQ, where the redstone...
You do not. Oh my goodness! It is a true psychopath that would build a viewing bay of a horse explosion. I can't even believe I'm saying
This
these
platform
words.
behind the reinforced glass, with Wilbur sat next to him, was where Quackity was to watch his horse die. As Wilbur started to stand up, the trapdoor hatch to the viewing platform swung open, scattering natural light into an otherwise dimly lit cave. Wilbur squinted into the morning sun as Ranboo began
How
to
is this
descend
gonna
the ladder.
backfire?
Ranboo! Wilbur cheered. You ready for the big day? I know you're not much... Well, never enter that section of the cave. There's too much TNT. Well, by the time you use it, Ranboo, I hope the TNT
But okay. But didn't Ranboo build that area?
has already left the room. Wilbur chuckled into a cough. If you won't use the trapdoor, I'll just remove it. No biggie. The viewing bay was adorned with decorations. A sign that read, "Thank you, happy day," was scrawled in a childlike font just next to the fake exit door. An equally childlike painting hung on the wall depicting Wilbur and Quackity as stick figures. Wilbur on a number 1 podium, and Quackity sat on the number 3 podium. Ooh.
Really?
Sorry. And
Really?
Quackity sat on the number 3 podium with a storm cloud over his head. Ranboo was drawn in slightly more detail, holding a big thumbs up on the number 2 podium. Is there anything I can get for you, Wilbur? Ranboo asked with a flat
It's so it's like it really is like sibling manipulation.
tone. Oh, Rhombus, a lemonade and a first edition Wilburger, Wilbur replied. He looked down and saw his hands covered in dirt and soot from the cave walls. I'll come up with you to wash my hands. Afterwards, we should go and get Big Q. It is his big day.
I've been playing with this the whole time because I'm nervous.
Bay via the trap door. Wilbur switched off the lights and followed him. Quackity quietly.
Because you would assume, based on the fact that there are 4 streams, you would assume the plan is going to attempt to happen here, and then stream 4 is going to be reaction to whatever the situation was that broke out.
Listening to the methodic ticking of the grandfather clock by his door. His work already finished by 8 a.m., he slowly sipped on a brandy and reclined his chair as far back as he could go without
Pretty good
spilling.
gig if you can get it.
With a sigh and a push of his feet, he managed to glide his seat over to his window and began scanning the horizon. The sand on the hill seemed to dance as the heat bounced off it. Quackity maneuvered his desk fan to his trajectory and yawned. There was nothing to do. If there was another person in his room, he would have tried harder to contain his excitement as Wilbur crested the Las Nevadas boundary. We take Quackity into the viewing bay, flip the lights on, and show him his horse primed on the pressure plate, Wilbur began to Rambo as they trudged up the sandy hill once more. Then we explain how the system works. When Quackity's understood my ingenious complexity of the contraption, I pull a carrot from my inventory.
Every villain ever has this moment where they have to explain the plan to the victim, and you know he's going to activate Quackity's trap card, and Quackity's going to send him to the Shadow Realm, but how? How is the thing?
And watch as his dumb horse strolls towards us, detonating itself in the entire cave. Quackity cries, we laugh. Quackity never messes with me again. Because you didn't want to be vice president, Rhombus.
Have you ever met
Quackity? Because
Quackity?
I shouldn't stoop as low as to be vice president, Rhombus, my boy, Wilbur said, correcting him and placing a hand on his shoulder. And besides, I'm president of the best damn burger van with the best damn chef around. Rhombus smiled.
Aw.
The pair continued past Tubbo's burger restaurant, closed and with Tubbo not inside.
Although again, and I know this is blurring the lines between character and actual person, we've seen Rambo make burgers. We've seen Rambo make American food. It doesn't go well. So him being the best chef is a little sus.
Building. The
little
two knocked
sus,
on the
friends.
side door to the administration offices. One would expect at least a security detail for Quackity, but alas, Wilbur and Rambo were able to effortlessly navigate the admin building with not so much as a locked door. Reams and reams of documentation lined the corridors as filing cabinets seemed to be in short supply. Each document was as confusing as it was elaborate, signed off meticulously with Big Q's signature. He was a bureaucrat after all. The pair approached a large mahogany door with a golden Q emblazoned on the front. The smell inside the room was so strong it penetrated the corridor they were standing in. Old books and cologne. A casino.
Pretty awesome.
Wilbur knocked 3 times with the blunt end of his fist, and a voice, almost auditioned, beckoned him inside. He turned the handle and swung open the door to reveal Quackity sitting at his desk with 3 glasses in front of him. He flipped a poker chip idly between his fingers and posed as if he was preparing for a photograph. Wilbur contrasted the scene by immediately clearing phlegm from his throat. Quackity, how are you? Wilbur asked, taking in the scene. I'm doing marvelous, Wilbur. Yourself? Couldn't
Fitting that these two would be in Las Nevadas. The two with arguably the best poker faces in all of the SMP.
be better. There was an awkward pause, and Quackity almost dropped his poker chip. Please take a seat, Quackity insisted, standing up and pouring the 2 of them a drink. I didn't think I'd see you back here so soon. No, I mean, me neither, but I just had to come in person. Is this about my offer? It still stands. I think you make a great vice president, Wilbur. Quackity offered with a smile, a vain
Picturing that anime moment with, like, the star
here,
there.
Quackity, and I think you know that, Wilbur said, cranking out the most realistic laugh he could manage. I actually have a gift for you. A gift? Quackity's eyes widened. Well, where is it? I'd love a gift. It's back in paradise, the burger van. At the burger van? Is it too big to carry? Oh, very much so, Wilbur responded.
Oh, it's going down!
He continued.
Get your it's going down helmets on, everybody!
Every part of Quackity's being could tell this was the most simple trap he'd ever seen. Wilbur was most likely aware of how suspicious he looked, but most likely didn't care. Okay, I'll bite, Quackity said, sitting back down. What's the catch? Come on. You gonna take me back and leave Rambo here to graffiti my office? I've seen your graffiti, Wilbur. It's not good. You need to use primers when you draw penises on our city walls. We can just wash them off otherwise. It took the janitors 5 minutes to... It's not graffiti, Wilbur interrupted. It's a gift, an actual
Technically,
real-life gift.
it is sort of graffiti. I mean, it is going to make a very disgusting modern art piece when it's all done.
Does it say sorry for snapping at you in the restaurant the other day? Wilbur almost sounded sincere, and distance from injuring himself or Quackity failed to measure the distance between it and the van. He hoped instead his rough design under the water of the lake would allow protection for all the surface damage. He also failed to actually test if the redstone line was connected to the TNT, as he was too afraid of setting off the dynamite too early.
I would have loved to see this. There, obviously, you got a picture in your mind of what this looks like, but to see the completed build would have been so cool, especially if there was like some form of elevator that took them down there.
As they approached the van, all of these thoughts danced in Wilbur's mind, and a single bead of sweat dripped down his head. His heart pounded in his chest, and he felt alive.
Character Wilbur
Quackity,
lives off
Wilbur
these
tapped
moments.
Big Q on the shoulder. Down there! Quackity looked down at the trapdoor inside the HQ and then back up to Wilbur. With a little hesitation, Quackity gently raised the hatch and took in the sight of a totally dark room, stirred with dust and smelling of sulfur. He turned back to Wilbur, who was eagerly waiting with a straight posture, smiling in anticipation. Quackity, never one to disappoint, descended the ladder into the darkness. Wilbur and Rambo
So he
followed
could have just
behind and
blown
shut
up
the trap door.
Quackity.
Now Quackity, Wilbur began. You may be wondering why I brought you here. I couldn't possibly guess, Wilbur, Quackity responded, the three of them being completely blind.
You could have just blown up the room. Quackity came in
I have
first.
to come clean, Wilbur continued. There is no gift. For you, at least. Quackity's eyes rolled as he feigned surprise. I never saw this coming, he replied. You know your horse, Boner? Wilbur asked with a malicious grin. My horse? Quackity grew concerned. Well, yes, I know my horse. What have you done to my horse? I'm glad you didn't forget about it, just like you did with everything else from your past life. Wilbur, what have you done to my horse? Don't worry, Quackity. It's not so much what I've done. No, rather what your horse is about to do to itself, Wilbur exclaimed with a manic laugh. He walked over to the wall and pulled the lever as suddenly the entire room was flooded with lamplight. A gentle hum overtook the background noise as the three men's eyes started to adjust to their new surroundings.
Here we go!
There was no horse.
A grievous miscalculation on behalf of Mr. Soot.
There stood on the primed pressure plate, scared as all hell.
What? Come on. The kid's got one cannon life left. Leave him alone. God, who's gonna... Is Ranboo gonna dive in the way, like bodyguard style, and then this is what kills Ranboo?
Was Tubbo.
You gotta be kidding me.
I found your horse, Big Q, Tubbo said, a shake in his voice. I think he's on the surface now. Wilbur, what the fuck is this? Quackity asked, rage building in him as his hands trembled into a fist. What's all that TNT for? Wilbur's face plummeted as he realized what he had done. Oh, no. Wilbur shook his head. Tubbo, how did you get there? Tubbo, don't move, Wilbur shouted down into the cave, a huge dose of terror in his voice. I went to find Quackity's horse, Tubbo shouted back. I only saw he was rigged to explode after I swapped places with him. If I stand still, will it still trigger? I don't want to die, Wilbur.
Talk about Minecraft Death Shuffle.
Ranboo scrambled up the ladder to go find help. You won't die, Tubbo, it's fine, just stay still, I'm coming to get you, Wilbur said, placing his palm against the glass. Wilbur, what have you done? Quackity asked, shoving Wilbur up against the glass of the viewing platform. It creaked gently under their weight. You want to kill Tubbo to prove a point? You knew he'd come to my aid. Quackity, this is what I was intending. I was going to blow up your horse. Wilbur was interrupted as Quackity struck him in the stomach with a single punch. Wilbur recoiled with a groan and slumped down to his knees. Oh, Quackity, please, I can fix this, he stuttered. You've done enough, Quackity spat before reverting his attention to Tubbo. Tubbo, how can we get you out of there? Wilbur darted between Quackity's knees and picked...
Dude, and this is only stream 3! What? So, something's gonna happen, and then in the last few minutes, all we're gonna have left is the remnants.
Up the fake exit door and held it at the glass, creating a small crack across its surface. Tubbo, I'm coming to save you, he yelled. Thank you, Wilbur, Tubbo stammered. Wilbur picked up the door again for another throw, but before he could even lift it, Quackity had tackled him to the ground. I said you've done enough, Wilbur, Quackity said, overpowering him, desperately struggling to pick up the door again, blood trickling down from his nose. Again, Quackity turned his attention to Tubbo. Tubbo, don't move. What can I do to help? I don't know, Big Q, Tubbo began. I guess you could drop water on the TNT? No, Wilbur exclaimed. The TNT will just explode the second the redstone circuit's broken. You are a sick fuck, Wilbur, Quackity said, turning his attention back to the terrorist he was pinning down. You're a pathetic, spineless bastard. Shut up and help me then, Wilbur shouted. Start trying to break the glass.
Why does it have to be Tubbo? If you've been following our viewing of the SMP for a while now, Tubbo's like the dude that I just keep hoping by the end of it gets happiness, and he just always finds himself in this exact spot.
Quackity ignored him. Tubbo, how did you get in? We can just go over and get you out the way you came in. I don't remember, Big Q, Tubbo responded. I dug my way in. I think Boner got out that way. Quackity muttered something under his breath before releasing Wilbur from his grip and grabbing the door to launch one more time at the glass. Wilbur sprung to his feet and grappled the door, struggling to snatch it from Quackity's hands. Let me do this, Quackity. I got Tubbo into this mess. I'll get him out, Wilbur exclaimed, attempting to wrench the door out of Quackity's grasp. He's my citizen. I won't let a citizen of my government die to a terrorist, Quackity shouted back.
Odd way to pull rank.
Refusing to relinquish the door. After a few seconds of struggling, Quackity began trying to kick Wilbur. A flurry of 4 swift kicks erupted forwards, missing their target, before one landed squarely against the body of the door, breaking it into 2 halves. Wilbur immediately chucked his half of the door against the glass, doing very little damage due to the loss in mass. He cried out in rage and began scrambling on the stone floor. The two, too out of breath to speak, began searching frantically for an item to hurl at the glass before Wilbur found a sizable rock against the boundary of the room. He held it above his head, ready to throw, before Quackity tackled him once again and tried to wrestle the rock out of his grip.
They're legit. They are, the two of them are combined causing more problems here than they're solving.
Tubbo watched as the two struggled for what felt like an hour, trying to take the rock from one another, before Wilbur finally swung it against Quackity's jaw, knocking him across the room and releasing Wilbur from the grapple. Immediately, Wilbur threw the rock against the glass, causing it to bounce back across the room. Quackity, now prone, grasped the rock in his hands and threw it over his body directly into the center of the glass pane, shattered it into 1,000 pieces.
There you go.
Wilbur recoiled from the explosion of the glass shards and fell backwards, giving Quackity time to right himself. Tubbo, just... Quackity began, panting out of breath before Wilbur launched himself against Quackity's knees once more, knocking him to the floor. You never cared about Tubbo. You just cared about your image, you maniac, Wilbur shouted, spitting blood as he attempted to pin Quackity's arms down. You just don't want anyone to know that you failed to protect the one person who still cares about you. Tubbo's my friend as much as he's my citizen. I'll protect him at any cost, Quackity responded before biting down hard on Wilbur's arm.
Biting him? Oh, okay. This is starting to get even worse because, like, one of them is gonna die. Tubbo's gonna die. Who knows where Rambo went at this point?
Quackity easily stood up and began to swing his fist across the side of Wilbur's head. The viewing platform shook and erupted in a fistfight as the two violently attacked
Help
each other.
Tubbo first! They're gonna, like, stumble into the room and knock him off the platform.
Quackity seemed to get the upper hand. It's at this point Rambo broke through the rock above the cave, scattering grey
Let's
sunlight
go,
into the room.
Rambo!
Neither Quackity nor Wilbur saw him collapse into the room and walk up to an increasingly frightened Tubbo. Rambo placed a single foot onto the pressure plate, put a hand on Tubbo's shoulder and said, Tubbo, you need to move. I have a plan. Without hesitation, Tubbo scrambled towards the ladder connecting to the cavern to the viewing platform, and he climbed it. He turned back to look at Rambo, who smiled at him with the kind eyes he remembered, and Tubbo smiled.
Wait! Because doesn't Rambo have the chorus fruit? Can't Rambo teleport? Is that canon? Because if Rambo can eat the chorus fruit and teleport out, they're fine.
Okay. Once Tubbo had ascended the ladder to safety and curled up in the corner, Rambo began to shout, Wilbur, Quackity! The two immediately stopped fighting and looked down at the new voice. Rambo stood firmly on the pressure plate. Rambo?
Rambo's got it!
A cold shot dragging down his spine. Where's... He looked at his left and saw Tubbo curled up in the corner with his eyes firmly shut. It's okay, guys, Rambo began.
Or Rambo could teleport back to the Syndicate. Although I don't know how Philza would know to activate the teleport.
Immediately began rushing to enter the main cave before Rambo raised a hand. Stop! Please, he shouted. Don't come closer. Stay in the viewing platform. Rambo, I'll go find something heavy. Just stay there, Wilbur began, but was interrupted by Rambo shaking his head. I have an idea, he began, his words echoing around the cave. I know what to do. I know how to defuse the bomb and make you realize how frivolous this whole thing is. He smiled. But tell me, Wilbur, Quackity, the burgers were good, right?
No!
Yes! Wilbur answered, instantly reacting. They're the best, Rambo, and they'll continue to be the best. Let me get you out. No, Wilbur, I just wanted to know. But it was never about the burgers, was it? Rambo said. Rambo smiled. Rambo jumped. Searing flames and a violent burst of air.
Rambo teleported.
For a change, the world really did end. Wilbur felt alive.
Wilbur Rambo teleported. Thank you for reading. Written by Wilbur Soot, consultation of dialogue from Quackity and Rambo, based on the characters created by Wilbur Soot, Quackity, Rambo, Tubbo, and Tommy in it, set in the server created by Dream.
Hell yeah. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you.
No
Quackity.
way. No way. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. There's too many ways for Rambo to have escaped that situation that he easily could have gotten away from that. What if accidentally, right, somebody activated the syndicate? It's just... And then does that mean that that's one of Rambo's lives, or was that all of them? Why in every timeline does Rambo die? These are the questions, my friends.
Dialogue consultation, and thank you Tubbo and Tommy as well for making the characters. Thank you. Thank you for coming down. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed my take on the lore. I will be carrying on the character of Wilbur Soot in future lore streams. Thank you for the gifted sub, Dinah Cals. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I want to thank Quackity and Rambo and
This is very... So is there a rift now? It's almost like there's two separate servers. Like the Dream getting out of prison stuff and then the Las Nevadas stuff. None of it, it's just so weird that Wilbur's kind of like, I'm going to be doing my own thing in my own
and Tommy
way.
And everyone for making such cool characters and for allowing me to write them and for coming in and reviewing. They all came and reviewed what I wrote and they all gave the all clear, and some Rambo and Quackity especially changed up some dialogue to more fit their characters. So what you're seeing is a very accurate representation of the characters and how we would have acted if we were actually on the screen as it was going. Yeah, I also want to thank Dream for making such an awesome server and allowing, you know.
Why does this feel like he's done? Why does this feel like he's done? I hate this. I mean, I love this, but like I hate the things I'm feeling right now about why does it sound like he's done? Why does it sound like it just sounds like something's not right. This I don't like it. I don't like it.
And all of the people on the server to express ourselves with art and with stories. So thank you, Dream, for the Dream SMP, and thank you for listening. And I will be coming back with more. Thank you for the gifted subs. Thank you for hanging out.
He's going to be back with more.
Great day. We're going to raid Philza Minecraft, who's currently playing the Origins SMP. You guys are all splendid as per. I will be streaming again very soon, I assure you.
Okay, so that's exciting. I'm going to end it there because there's like 20 seconds, but it's just him setting up the raid and stuff. My God, I did not... Of all the things I expected to come out of that, of all the things I expected Rambo was doing with the TNT, putting it under Las Nevadas, all that kind of stuff, kidnapping the horse, who shall remain nameless, I had always just assumed was gonna be like a... I don't know, I thought that was gonna be hijinks that led up to the thing. I didn't think that was gonna be the thing, and again, why in every timeline is Rambo the one who has to bear the brunt of the world's problems? That, I think I disagree with, but, again, maybe we'll talk about this in the future on stream or something. I've got a couple other things I'm working on as well, so, let me know what your thoughts were on all of this. I got some emotional, like, processing to do, but as always, take care, my friends, and I will see you for the Salty Runback.